What's up, plant family? Devin is here, and welcome to another installment of Houseplant Essentials, where I go through some of the basic care tips and techniques for the most popular houseplants. And of course, today we're going to be talking about Monstera Deliciosa, or the Swiss cheese plant. Now, this is a plant that's native to southern Mexico, all the way down to Panama, through Central America. And in those areas, it will scramble along the hillsides. It'll climb up big, tall trees. It's actually quite a weedy plant in its native habitat. But for us, it is a beautiful houseplant, exceptionally easy and rewarding plant to grow. Now, the first thing that we need to consider is the lighting. So in its native habitat, it is definitely an understory plant that will grow in quite shady areas that are, shaded by larger, taller shrubs and trees in these jungly forested areas. For us, if we want to have wonderful expedited growth, placing them in a bright, very bright, southern-facing window for those of us in the northern hemisphere, that's going to be the #1 way to get your plant from without fenestrations to a plant that has fenestrations. Fenestrations being these beautiful slices and holes in the leaves. So giving it great lighting will help it grow much more quickly. But once it's kind of taken off and it's at an optimal size for you, I definitely recommend reducing the amount of lighting that it gets. Here you can see I just have it tucked in this corner. It's more than 12 feet away from the nearest window. It has one grow light that shines on it for 12 hours a day, but generally speaking, this is a pretty low lit area and it does fantastic. Just a point of reference, this plant is almost 4 years old and I started it from a plant this size, so they're a very rapid grower. Now, the next thing to consider is the soil mix that we want to give them. Providing them with just a generic houseplant bagged potting mix is all you need to worry about. No special blend is necessary for the easygoing Monstera Deliciosa. And now in terms of watering, they're also quite easy to take care of. I will always opt to allow them to dry out between watering. Here you can see my soil is just a little bit damp there in the center still, so I'm gonna wait until I can visibly see that it is totally dry, and then I can just do the little finger test, put my finger in the first ½ inch of soil, and if it feels dry, then it's a good opportunity to give it some water. With regards to fertilizer, I use my family's blend. It's called Roberta's Bounty. This is just an all-purpose fertilizer for both indoor and outdoor plants. Very easy to use, and I'll use it once every 3 to 4 months. Now, let's talk about container size. This is something that I think is very important for growers of Monstera that are starting out for the first time. I find that when our plants are small, less than 1 foot in height, that they do their best when they're in a pretty snug, small container. That will kind of just force it to want to grow. It's going to quickly outgrow those pots, so we're going to need to upsize it rather often as they are young plants. Once a year is probably going to be the minimum amount of times that you're going to be upsizing its container while it's still a young plant. But then once your plant has reached about 2 feet in height, you can definitely give it a larger container, allows it to sort of swim in a little bit of extra soil, and it will not mind that at all. So rule of thumb, start with smaller containers, gradually get bigger and bigger, and then you can go for a big boy. Now, the most important thing to consider when growing our Monstera is giving them some sort of support structure. That could be a moss pole, it could be a 2x4 like I'm using, it could even be a wall, provided that you're actually fastening it to the wall some way or form. They will not just naturally adhere to a moss pole, they won't naturally adhere to the wall or the 2x4s like other plants might. So you need to use something like floral tape, which you can wrap around the pole, and that's going to keep it in place growing up. Without providing it anything to grow up, it will just kind of stop growing, because they're either going to, like I was saying, they're either going to scramble in nature, finding ways to grow forward, or they're going to scramble up something. So if your plant has reached a size, a height that is convenient to you, then don't provide it any additional support than what it currently has. So for me, I'm not going to provide it any support taller than this because I don't want my plant to get any taller. But if you want your plant to get bigger and taller, producing larger leaves, then you really need to think about providing it with larger, taller support structures each time that you size up to the next size container. That's going to create the largest leaves for you with the most beautiful Swiss cheese effect. Now, I don't need to tell you how beautiful they are inside the home. They're one of the most iconic house plants, one of the most popular because they are a true bold statement, perfect for corners. And you guys know that I always recommend having a few large specimen plants throughout your home to really create that oomph of energy, and the Monstera is always at the top of that list. And one side note is that as you transplant to the next size container, you can absolutely just bury those aerial roots right into the soil, and they're going to help support your plant as well with its life. If you do have any other further questions or comments, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. Also, don't forget, give this video a like, consider subscribing to our channel as we're bringing new plant-related content every single week. Anyways, thank you for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I'll catch you soon. Ciao.